All right, British Columbia is only 8 days away from going to the polls, and I'm really pleased to be joined for a little election analysis here from Jordan Bateman, Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Taxpayers watchdogs love elections because they are full of promises, they're full of spending promises, they're full of possibly tax cuts. What are you looking for this time around, and what do you like so far from the three parties, and what do you, if there's anything you don't like, please, I'm sure there's lots, please let us know.
Yeah, well, for 4 years, you compare the government to perfection, and you're always holding them to this standard that, of a perfect policy. In elections, there's no more perfection. You're holding them accountable compared to the other parties. And let me tell you, the current government, their fiscal plan is heads and tails, or heads and shoulders above the rest when it comes to fiscal responsibility. The taxes being considered by the NDP and the Green Party will just have a devastating effect on the cost of living for a lot of British Columbians. And if you're someone who's already on the edge when it comes to your take-home pay, take a look at the NDP and Green Party platforms and their tax promises. You'll be appalled at what they're going to do.
Doubling the carbon tax, I think, both of them. Corporate tax hikes, I believe, from the NDP. They haven't mentioned income tax hikes, but probably inevitable, along with likely increases to other fees and things like that.
They actually have. They have talked about income tax hikes as well. I mean, on the super elite, right, which they define as people or as households making $150,000 a year or more. So if you're two teachers married and living in this province, you're now the super elite that the NDP and Green Party think you should be taxed at the same level as Jimmy Pattison and Henrik Sedin. I mean, just an absolutely appalling kind of public policy decision.
$150,000 is really not. I wouldn't consider it rich for a family, especially two incomes. The BC Liberals, I know that a ton of conservatives, they give me grief that you probably hear the same thing, that they're not a true conservative party. But they're full of, what I think a lot of the caucus is federally conservative aligned. I think that some of them at least believe strongly that BC's been a role model as far as balanced budgets and things like that. Is that what the CTF and Taxpayers Watchdogs, at the end of the day, if you're looking for one thing to vote on, is that what it is?
Yeah, no government is perfect, but look, I used to be a municipal councillor in Langley. I know that everyone has a different reason to vote. For me, the reason is the pocketbook. What's going to happen to my pocketbook at the end of your 4 years in office? And I can tell you that the Liberals are trying to save you money by cutting MSP taxes, hopefully phasing them out altogether as the economy improves or continues to grow. Whereas the NDP, they're looking for other ways to gouge you, other ways to tax you, and they're going to end up in a bunch of red ink, because when you bring in higher corporate taxes, when you raise income taxes, when you make more red tape for businesses, what happens? The economy shrinks. You don't need to be, a super genius to figure this out. If you make it harder for businesses to create jobs, they don't create jobs, and you end up with an economy that sinks quickly. That is a big problem. You're talking about the Alberta experience coming to British Columbia. Look, you don't even need to remember BC in the 1990s to fear the NDP. You don't even need to remember Saskatchewan in the early 2000s to fear the NDP. Just look across the Rockies at what's going on in Alberta. That should send a chill down your spine as it is.
Something a lot of our viewers are obviously very familiar with. The biggest issue is not necessarily jobs in the economy for once. It is affordability, especially here in the Lower Mainland, but even in other parts of the province. Now, everybody thinks that the government should have a big role in fixing this problem, but is this one of the cases where it's like government actually can't do a lot to help? I mean, other than maybe things like reducing red tape as far as getting supply online. But are the NDP kidding themselves, and are people kidding themselves to think that by voting NDP somehow that will solve some of these problems that we're having here?
Yeah, the real problem with property prices in the Lower Mainland when it comes to housing is at the local government level. If you feel like you're paying too much for housing, vote the bums out of your local city hall who are adding red tape. Vancouver has 107 different taxes, fees, and levies on a new home. There's tens of thousands of units in the pipeline clogged up by bureaucracy at municipal halls. So if that's your number one issue, vote the bums out of City Hall. It's an easy fix. When it comes to provincial politics, look, Vancouver has an affordability problem, absolutely. So does San Francisco. So does Toronto. So does Portland. So does Seattle. Like, all of these cities are facing the same thing. And it's not like anyone has found this magic elixir to fix this problem. China is huge. And you've got thousands of millionaires trying to get money out of China into safe havens. And who can blame them? That is a natural human impulse given what the kind of government they have in China to get your capital out. And they're trying to find safe places to park it. That is a problem, yes. A 15% tax has proven not to have actually effectively curbed it. A 30% tax, like Andrew Weaver's promising, isn't going to prove it, because when it's about a long-term play, as it is for many of those people, they have the time to wait it out. So, you got to be careful. Like, one of the big uncosted promises in this NDP platform is 114,000 affordable housing units. At 200 grand each, that's a $22 billion spend by taxpayers. And yeah, the development industry will tell you they can't even do it. There's only 20,000 new units being built across the Lower Mainland every year, and now they want to add another 10 or 11,000 per year of these subsidized homes. Builders can't do it. The city halls will tie it up in red tape. Local governments will have to kick in land. Property taxpayers will end up paying more. The thing is a mess, and not a dime is in the NDP budget for it.
I'm glad we got to talk about this because it actually leads into my next question, and I understand that you have a little bit of an announcement. You're moving on from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, 6 years, but you're actually going to still have a public position in something that is going to be a really important thing. You're going to be working for the Independent Contractors Association of British Columbia. I know that you guys have, or that organization, and you will continue to shed light on things like you talked about, municipal red tape that is getting in the way of getting housing starts. But anything else you can tell us about your new job and where we can expect to see your stuff? Are you still going to be in the province and the Sun, hopefully?
Yeah, I think so. So I'm the new Director of Marketing and Communications at the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association. I have to get used to saying it. ICBA.ca, an incredible organization. In the 1990s, went tooth and nail with the NDP over open shop regulations, making sure that any company could bid on construction projects in the province of British Columbia. 80% of the construction sector in BC now is non-union, and it's thanks to groups like the ICBA who've been fighting for that and the companies involved. So really excited to go there. We're going to tackle municipal red tape. We're going to tackle business practices or government practices, taxation, red tape that hurts businesses. And we're really going to focus on a big secret about the ICBA, which is they have 1,300 registered apprentices working at ICBA companies. The ICBA is the single largest sponsor of construction apprentices in the province of British Columbia. We want to make sure that those young people, when they're done their apprenticeships, they have a great job, a good economy, and a way to feed their families for many years. So that's what we're going to focus on.
And the construction industry is really what's driving the economic growth in this province right now.
9% of the GDP is related to construction.
Absolutely wonderful. Jordan, well, thank you so much over the years for joining us in your CTF role. We look forward to hearing from you in the future and in your new position. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And can I say one thing? Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Ezra, and the whole gang at Rebel. You guys have been great to me, and I really appreciate all the opportunities I've had over the years to comment on important things to British Columbians, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Jordan. Really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. As I said, 8 days until BC goes to the polls, so keep it locked to our Rebel Canada YouTube page for all your British Columbia election coverage.